go again. I don't quite have 18 days left. We've got 14. There's a lot of stuff on that list that can be done, but there's also a lot of stuff not on the list at all, like mounting the radiator, repairing the radiator, all the water cooling pipes that I've got. So better pull my finger out and make some decent progress today. Right, let's get into it. I've just fitted a fresh set of spark plugs. Once I put my plug caps on, I'll be able to remove this pipe for the last time. I need to make a custom gasket up for it, but before I can finally bolt it on. So there's the feed pipe from the turbo, all in for good. And now I'm going to pull the one off the plenum chamber and make another gasket for him down here and bolt that on too. Here's that feed pipe that needs the gasket made. I ended up buying just this thermostat gasket. It's like $4. Other than that, I was looking at buying a whole sheet for, I think it was 40 or 50 bucks. So that worked out pretty cheap, and it's already got like a starting hole in the center. So that's what we're going to use. That's probably the easiest gasket I've ever had to make in my life. Right, put her on, I suppose. The feed pipe's bolted on. Before I go and throw the plenum chamber on, I better sort out everything under here. I need my crankcase breather system sorted, sort this wiring out, plug in the side stand switch, anything else that I think that I might need to have to do under the plenum chamber. So I'll sort that out, and then we'll be good to go. I ended up buying a second-hand switch and bracket from the wreckers, so I'll clean all that up, bolt that up, and then I'll be able to run these wires up to where they go under the plenum chamber. Here's the stand off my Quacker turbo. You can see where I've had it cut and shortened. So I've got another stand from the wreckers, which is it's a little bit longer. The drama is, when I've got the stand, the new one, it's actually got no thread in the back here. The way it was set up, it had a bolt going through the stand and two lock nuts on the back of it. So I'm going to mock it all up, put the bolt back through, and look at migging the nut on the back of this. It appears to be the new stand's in better condition. It's not as opened up as mine, like that's quite parallel, where mine looks like it's been worn and sort of splayed apart. So I'll have to mock all the stand up on the bracket, put the bolt and nut in there, make sure that this nut isn't going to hit the engine cases or anything silly before I weld it on there, and then I'll be right. So I've tested it, it's going to fit, doesn't interfere with anything. I'm going to put a few tacks of weld on it, and that'll be the new thread. Like we said before, the other way they had it was basically this nut and another nut locking it off, and yeah, it looked pretty horrible. So I'll weld that on there, I'll still run a lock nut, and I'll be good to go. The side stand bracket and switch is all installed. There's my little weld job on the back of the nut to hold it there. I can see that someone's actually heated this up and maybe bent it. So rather than sandblast it and paint it yet, I think I will put it all on the bike, wait till my wheels rock up. I might have to modify the length of it still, because I think mine sits a little bit higher than a normal bike now. So we'll bolt it on and paint it up later. That's the stand all sorted. I'll rip back to the shop now, grab my wiring stuff so I can extend this wiring, and then finally put my plenum chamber in. Got all my wiring kit and extended the side stand switch. So now I can secure the harness out the way, and let's have a look at the crankcase breather and see where he mounts up here. Here's the crankcase breather system. It runs all the way from the gearbox, the top of the engine at the rear, through up to this top tank, which is filled with that really coarse stainless steel swarf. It catches all the oil vapor in the swarf, and then it vents just the air or the gases or pressure, I suppose, to the atmosphere through here. Halfway along, it's teed in to the vent pipe for the there's a tank underneath the turbo which lets the oil gravity drain out of the turbo into this little sump, and that sump has a vent pipe. That's where it connects, so that's filtered as well. Right, so I'm going to replace the hoses and see if I can replace that filter up the top and bolt it to the side of the bike. So here's the system all fitted up. There's the catch can, tees into the little sub tank for the turbo, and that's that little hose right at the top there. That's the vent pipe. These seem to be very important with this bike. Without that, it used to smoke on the overrun. Anyway, so through there, down to the tank, and this guy runs back to the crankcase breather. Right, I'll pull this out again, have a look under there, and drop it in for the last time. So it turns out that's not the last time the plenum chamber had to be removed like I thought. I went to fit it and realised that the where the blow off valve spigot was, it put the blow off valve right in line with the battery, so which means I have to go back to ripping the suspension out and trying to lower this battery case as low as I can. So that's what I've got to do now. Make up another bracket to creep it down another probably 10 or 15 mil, the more the better. So that's what I've got to do now. Hopefully I don't end up chopping my fingers off. We need to make a different bracket to hang the battery case. The bracket's coming along pretty good. I've got it to the minimal clearance that I can have to the shocky. I still haven't been able to lower it down to see if when the suspension goes down it moves the canister closer to the under tray of the battery. So just got to have to see what happens and drill it, tap it, trim off the extra fatty bits, and then see if I can get away with it. So far so good. I've got the slightest amount of clearance between the shocky and the battery case, just in here. There's a gap there. The next thing I've got to do is the battery needs to be able to be installed. It's my mock-up one, and then the blow-off valve, which I can't quite lay my hands on. Here it is. Needs to have clearance, which he does. So that's about as tight a fit as I can get it. Long as when I pull it off the roof rafters, the suspension moves and doesn't smash into that plate that I've just made, I've had a win. Still 14 days left. What are we going to do? We're going to have to try and fit that plenum chamber like I keep promising, and clean the blow-off valve, check out the wiring, definitely secure that guy down. I'm sick of pulling that in and out, and bolt the throttle position sensor back on, and that side's looking really good. Once that's all done, we'll be able to join the two feed pipes together and maybe have a look at the radiator, which is definitely in need of a big birthday because it's pretty sad. The blow-off valve looks like he's a bit dirty as well. I'll pull that apart, give him a service, and put that guy on. There's the blow-off valve all pulled apart. I'll clean it all up, make sure the piston moves freely and whatnot, and I'll be able to fit it to the bike. Upon closer inspection, when I pulled it apart, I found there's a seal halfway down the blow-off valve outer housing. That seal was broken like it is here, and by feeling it now I can feel it's very hard and brittle, so I'll just replace that with a standard O-ring when the bearing shop opens up on Monday. These rubbers are so tight to get off. I really do need to change them, but because I can see there's a couple of pieces missing out of them since I've had the plenum chamber in and out so many times. So I'm probably going to regret this, but I'm about to chop them off and be forced to replace them. So here we go. Definitely have made my life harder by chopping that off. The stuff I have is slightly different. I've tried to fit it onto the bike, onto the intake manifolds, and it's just impossible, not going to fit. So the stuff that I must have used before, it's made of slightly different wall thickness, or it just feels softer. This is off the feed pipe, and that has some sort of potential to go on, same as the original intake manifold rubber, but this new version of the silicone hose, way stiffer. Need to make another plan because that's not going to go back on. So it's been a pretty big day down the shed. I'll probably pull the pin tonight, but before I do that, I will pull the covers and the hoses off this radiator and sneak it inside while I'm watching telly. Try and neaten it all up, fix all the bent fins and stuff. There's a lot of damage on this thing, especially where the turbo, when it was first installed, on and off, it had rubbed on the radiator. So I'll try and fix all them, maybe put some DevCon on the parts that look like they're gonna cause a drama. I've been straightening up the fins on the radiator. I ripped it out the back to hit it with the soda blaster, so hopefully it doesn't totally destroy my radiator, but I've got to see. That stuff is amazing, so let's give it a go, and hopefully I don't stove all the fins in on the radiator. Well, I had bugger all soda left to my blaster, probably only not even half a kilo, but you can really see that it cleaned up the pores awesome compared to this half, which I haven't even blasted. So I reckon it's worth a crack, so I'll get some more. And yeah, that was literally 30 seconds worth of work, so I'll get some more of that bicarb of soda and then do this other half before I even begin to straighten out the fins. You can really see the blockages and the damage a lot easier when it's clean. Anyway, well, now we got 12 days left. I've had a bit of a look at the radiator. I've soda blasted it, cleaned it. I think this damage, I'm not going to waste any more time doing it. I know that it's clean. I know that I have to fix a few funny marks down here where it's had things rub on it. It hasn't rubbed through, but it's got potential. Then I'm going to get the this grill and wire brush it, paint it gloss black. I'll leave this just raw aluminium because I just need it to have the best cooling that it can have, and that's what I'm going to get into tonight. Basically try and get this radiator side of the world done, the thermostat housing, give that a bit of a clean up, and also the Samco hoses. I've got a full kit of Samco hoses up here, so we'll have to see how many of these relate to my bike, which I'm not sure how many will, but we're going to use as many as we can. Okay, time to paint the grill. While I'm waiting for the grill to dry, I'm going to rip back over to the radiator and put the DevCon on these parts here that are probably dangerously thin. So I'll put a bit of a DevCon band-aid on those couple of cores. So there's a little dribble of DevCon that I've put on. While that's drying and the protective grill is drying, I'll reassemble the blow valve. There's the blow valve all reassembled with a new seal in there. Glad I pulled it apart because, like we've seen before, this one was buggered. So I'll put a normal O-ring in there rather than this X like cross-sectioned O-ring. So that's ready to go back on the bike when the plenum chamber goes back in. So this is the thermostat housing. I'll pull it apart, make sure it all looks clean inside, and I've got a new O-ring to stop this sort of weep. Might even give it a bit of a blast and paint her up as well. So with it pulled apart, to me it looks like that thermostat is stuck open. So I'll have to look into it and see if that's right or wrong, but that looks open to me, which would be wrong. There's the lower housing, which needs a clean, and the top's plastic, so he's good to go. So anyway, bit of paint on the lower and do some research to see if that's right or wrong. So as we're running out of time to make the deadline, this is the one intake manifold rubber that I'd cut off from the intake. I've found this old silicone hose, the same thickness and whatnot as what I ran before. The new stuff I've bought is this stuff, and it just doesn't seem to want to even attempt to fit. I'm going to clean this up, replace the one that I've chopped off, and maybe I'll have enough to replace the other one that's damaged as well. But if nothing else, I need to get this on the bike so I can put that plenum chamber on to try and make that deadline. So it's cleaned up good enough. Now I just need to try and cut it with the Stanley knife and not mess it up, because this is the only piece that I have. So before I cut this bit of blue silicone hose, I've gone down to the hardware store and I've bought these really sharp blades. They reckon you're far more likely to cut yourself using a blunt blade than a sharp blade, so I've gone down the path of getting these ones. They're really sharp, meant to be the best in the business, so let's give that a go. So here we go, we're just going to cut along the edge of the clamp. So on the way to Perth now to get the surgery on my hand, not in the ambulance. The old wife's driving me up there, so that's pretty good. So I've got to get all my tendons put back on top of my thumb. So that'll be fun for today, and we'll see what happens.